Hey, what's up everyone? As you could probably tell by the thumbnail of this video, I went and I purchased a laser cutter. And I did that for a couple reasons. One, I really like working with wood-based structure kits. If you've seen my videos for my warehouse switching layout, all the structures on that layout are made from wood kits, most notably ITLA, and really fantastic, really great model kits. Really fell in love with them. And so I knew going forward I wanted to still continue to use wood-based kits. I'm also a woodworker, so anything to do with wood, I'm all in. So for the next layout, I have an idea for a lot of different types of structures, and they're going to be mostly structures that were built, like say, from the 70s up until today. And ITLA, as fantastic as they are, a lot of their structure kits are really based around like the transition era and a little bit later than that. And while they are still relevant on some modern layouts, as you could see on my warehouse district over there, the buildings that I'm interested in, they really don't produce. And so while I could sit around and wait and wait and wait for someone to create these things or just build them from scratch, I figured, you know what, I really like working with these things. So in the long run, it's probably going to be cheaper for me just to get this thing and create as many things as I want. And that leads me to the second point, which is once I have structures that I like, once I've built them, I can offer them as kits to sell to anyone that be looking to purchase them. And so it's also kind of a revenue stream going forward sometime in the future. I'm not sure when exactly that's going to happen. More on that later. But those are the two main reasons. And kind of a third bonus reason is that it's just really cool, and I get to cut up a whole bunch of stuff and make all kinds of really cool patterns and do kinds of artsy crafts things with my family, which they like to do as well. So those are the main reasons for doing that, and we're going to get into some of the details of this and what I'm going to be doing with it in just a bit. Okay, so I already know a bunch of you have some questions on what is this thing, what are the specs, what can it do? So I'll go over a little bit of that, just kind of highlights, very high level. This is not going to be a tutorial on laser cutting by any means. There's plenty of those out there. So I'll just go over the details of this machine and why I chose it. So this particular machine is the Gwick Cloud Nox. It's a 45 watt CO2 laser. It weighs about 90 pounds. It's heavy. It doesn't look like it weighs a lot, but it does. There's a lot of steel in here, or whatever metal it's made out of. It's heavy. And so it's like 22 by 38 by 9. The bed itself is 12 by 20 inches, which is a good size bed, or just over 300 by 500 millimeters. If you need the metrics on that, it's liquid cooled, which is already built in. Everything's already built into it, which was another reason why I chose this thing. It's also kind of a stripped down version of their Pro model, which means it was less expensive, and it didn't have all those extra bells and whistles that I really don't need, like Wi-Fi, using their cloud software. I don't need any of that. I just need to connect my computer to it and then just run it with the software. I don't want to have to be connected to the internet at all, which is another big selling point for me with this particular machine. I don't think any of their other machines require internet, except if you want to use their cloud software. It does have air assist and external exhaust fan built into it. It comes with an extra external exhaust fan, so you can pipe the fumes out the window, which I'm doing over here. I just made a plywood insert with a dryer hose vent connected to it. Works perfectly fine. It's really easy to clean. This all comes out. The one thing to keep in mind, I don't know if their Pro models are like this, but the honeycomb bed has a little bit of lateral sway. So when the machine's moving, when the gantry's moving laterally, especially at faster speeds, the bed has a tendency to shift a little bit, which will create uneven lines, which I figured out. So I'm just shimming it with a small metal ruler, which is just enough to keep it solid. So that's basically about it. It does have safety features as well. So if I open this while it's running, it will turn off. It won't fire the laser when that is open at all, which is really nice. You can disable that if you want to in the software. I leave it on just because my daughter comes down here and it's running and she wants to lift it up. She's not going to get a laser beam to the face, which, no one really wants that. So those are the basics. Oh, and I am using Lightburn on Windows. So that's the computer setup I have here, just connected via USB cable. I do all of my design and cutting through Lightburn. It's a CAD program, very easy to use. Well, it's easy for me. I've been using CAD programs since high school, so a while. And I think it's a relatively easy program to pick up. There's really not a lot to it when it comes down to it. You're creating geometric shapes, text, things like that, and then you can have different layers, and you can decide which layers it's going to cut in which order, and for each layer you can set a different power setting. So it's not it's pretty simple concept if you think about it. To cut through material, which this can do, I believe, up to a 1/4 inch MDF if I wanted to in one pass. I don't really plan on cutting material that thick, but with the software you basically tell it, okay, if I want to engrave something, I give it this power setting. If I want to cut something, I give it a higher power setting, and variations in between. They're really all the only things you need to know. What geometry, what power settings, and you're pretty much good to go. So pretty easy to work, pretty easy to get into, and I think that's it for now. So let's talk about what I'm going to be using it for, which of course is the exciting part for this video. Okay, so here's what I'm going to be working on, the fun stuff. Structure kits. The main purpose for getting this laser cutter is to create structures for my model railroads going forward. I'm going to want a lot of different types of structures for what I have in mind. And so that's the main purpose for this. So I will be focusing on structures that I would like to see on my layouts going forward, which are going to be structures that are relevant from the 70s up until today. Mostly between the 70s and the early 2000s. That's kind of my era that I'm focusing on, but they're relevant up until today. And so these are the type of things that I'm going to be creating. Basically a lot of like small businesses and things like that. Things that I really find interesting. I'm sticking with HO scale, mostly because that's what I'm going to be working in. I don't know if I'm going to branch out to any other scales, and if I do, I don't know when that would happen. So just to kind of answer that question right off the bat. Another question to answer right away is no, I'm not going to be doing custom orders. I'm only going to be creating kits that I would like to see brought to market. And so that's what I'll be focusing on. There's a lot of structures out there. A lot of other kit manufacturers that produce a wild array of structures. However, I don't see a lot of these types of buildings being produced, and so that's kind of where the gap is for me. And so those are the buildings that I want, and so these are the buildings that I'll be creating. The other thing I wanted to point out with these particular types of structures is a lot of these things are going to be like small businesses. Not really intricate buildings, just a lot of kind of like the ho-hum buildings that you don't even really pay attention to as you're driving down the road, or hopefully taking a train ride and watching go by out the window. A lot of these buildings represent small businesses that this is like their world. These are the buildings they create their dreams in. And so those are the type of things that I want to highlight because I own my own small business with, I also do photography. And eventually, of course, I'll be creating my own structure kits, which will be in my own small business. And so these buildings represent kind of like the American dream of building your own business going forward and kind of being, controlling your own destiny. So that's kind of what these represent, which I find a lot of fun. And I really enjoy researching these things and going around and taking pictures. And a lot of the buildings I'll be creating are buildings that I have access to, which makes it even more enjoyable for me. And so, yes, so in this particular building over here, I'm actually going to highlight in this video how some of these things get put together, kind of the concepts around it. The other thing is these are not complete, as in like these are not the final models that I would be making available. There's some extra details that I want to add. There's also some dimensions that I need to figure out a little bit better. So I'll create one of these things, put it together, measure it all out, see how I like it, paint it up, see how it looks, and then decide, okay, I think I need to adjust this, I think I need to adjust that. It's kind of a experiment as I go sort of process at the moment. But over time, I've noticed this was the first building I actually created, and there's several other buildings that I have up on a shelf over here that I've been creating. This is the latest one. So between this one and this one, I've gained a whole kind of world of knowledge on the types of different techniques that I'm going to be employing going forward. So I guess without further ado, let's get into putting one of these things together. Okay, so here is the cut and engraved portion for the frame and the walls and the supports here. And so now I just got to pop these out by breaking the little tabs that I placed around the design, which is pretty easy. You just kind of push it with your finger and it'll pop right out. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll go on and get the next piece ready. Okay, all the detail parts are now cut out. There's the stuff for the storefront, the overhang and the sign, some exterior doors, and all of the trim. Now the trim is going to have to be sanded, kind of beveled at a 45-degree angle at the back. Otherwise, the pieces will stick on the side of it. So I want to get it flush, so there's a nice square corner. And so I'll have to sand those down when I get to that step. But otherwise, these are all set to go. Okay, so I have everything dry fit together as far as the walls and the base plate goes. Just tacked together with some painter's tape. And pretty happy with the fit right now. I did have to make a couple more alterations, one to the center beam and another to the brace that kind of holds the overhang in place. They were both a little bit too long, so had to make an adjustment there and recut those. But right now everything's fitting together pretty well. I also held on to these kind of cutouts from the base plate. One, I cut them out just to kind of reduce weight on the model. This is really not necessary. And also two, more importantly, to use as spacers for my rooftop. So when I glue the roof on, I'm going to do it upside down. And so when I glue the braces to the walls, I'm going to put these spacer blocks between the brace and the tabletop so that once it's glued and I flip it back over, there'll be a little bit of a recess so that my rooftop will sit down in a little bit, just to kind of match what the prototype's got going on. Okay, so here are all the pieces for the internal support. This is going to do a couple different things. One, it's going to keep the structure rigid when handling, and two, it's going to provide the proper height for the roof when I put that down into it. So once this is all glued up and in the structure, all I have to do is set the roof down on top of it, and then it'll be at the height that I want it to be at. I'm just using a square to make sure everything turns out square, and I'm just going to glue up each one of these joints and then just let it sit and harden, and then we'll get it glued into the structure. So this is the first step of the assembly process for the overhang, and that's going to sit on the front of the structure. And so here's the main piece that's going to be held into place here, and this is just like a little backing piece just for extra glue surface. So that's just going to go on like that. It's just some extra support there. And then this is the top portion, the roof portion. And then there's another piece here, and then this is the underside. So these are going to be layered like this. You can see that layered there. And the reason it's layered is because of the sign. So I wanted a certain height for the sign in my design, and so I cut holes exactly where the signposts are going to go. And so they're cut into this one and into this one, but not into this one. So this actually is a great stopping point for the sign to go down just enough so that it's at the right height. And then this piece here is just for more thickness to get down to the level of where the underside of the roof would be. So that's going to be all assembled like this, and that's how that works. Okay, so next I'm going to glue the walls together for this kit, and I'm going to use the base for that. So not only did I create the base to have scenic elements, but also to use as a gluing jig. So when I'm putting the walls together, all the corners will end up being perfectly square. And so then once I have this glued, I can just set some weights on either side of it, keep it all together so that when the glue finally cures, I'll have 4 perfectly square walls. So for some of the detail parts here, I've basically printed out some stuff and pasted them on here just to get, I wasn't going to draw these on, so I just went online, found some images that looked kind of like tattoos, printed them out, scaled them down, and pasted them onto the back of these pieces of laminate here. So these pieces will be included as well, so you can print your own things out, cut them out, paste them on, and then glue them to the back of this. So, and this is just literally text over some solid red color, cut to fit, and then glued onto this as well. For the painting of this piece here, to get all the detail to show up, like in the hinges and everything here, basically painted this all black, got the paint inside all the creases, and then once that was dry, carefully painted over the top with the gray so that the black still remains, so it looks like there's actually space in between there. The door handles on this side are a separate piece, as well as the kind of like push bar door handle on the back of the glass. That's glued separately back here, so it gives it that 3D dimension, so it doesn't look like just some flat piece there. And the plastic is just some packaging plastic that I cut up and made to fit. I still have to find a good source of thin laser cuttable plastic that's not going to stink up my basement and possibly cause poisoning. So I have to find a good secure place or source for that. Still working on that. That'll come down the road. But for now, whatever packaging I can find, I tend to put into these things at the moment. And yeah, so all I have to do is glue these into the structure. Okay, so now it's time to get the internal support glued into the walls here, now that they're done curing. And so basically I'm just going to squeeze this down in here. It's going to be a little tight, but that's on purpose. And I'm just going to push them down a little ways, and then I'm going to flip the building over. And I made sure that I did not glue the base down just yet for this purpose. And these are actually the cutouts from the base. And like I was mentioning before, I'm going to use those as spacers to get the right height for the roof line. And so I'm just going to push this down on top of here. I'm going to push down on the supports until they meet the spacer blocks. And then when I flip it over, this is the perfect depth for where I want the roof line to be. So all I have to do is put a bead of glue around the inside and it's all set to go. Alright, so there you have it. An HO scale structure that looks believable, simple to put together. Didn't really take that long at all. You could easily deck these out with a whole bunch of different details, some of which I'll be including in the kits. You could add lighting, interiors, they're easily modifiable, they're wood, so you can actually cut holes out if you wanted to add extensions. Possibilities are kind of endless with these things. And I just want to note that these are not the final designs. I'm still going through design iterations with these. I may shorten this one, may not include the base. I'm not exactly sure yet. There's a bunch of other buildings that I'm currently kind of prototyping out as well. So just want to let you know that. We'll take some time to figure some things out, like packaging, pricing, a platform to sell them on. I'll need to find a good source for the plastic, for the window glazing, a whole bunch of different things I still need to figure out. So it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow, but sometime in the near future. So if you have interest in these, let me know in the comments below. Be curious to hear your thoughts. And just kind of overall recap of what these structures are going to be. They're going to be HO scale, fairly detailed, small business type of buildings, kind of anywhere in America type of designs. And as far as the railroad era, anytime from the 70s up until today, these will be perfect for. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Definitely enjoyed making it and having a lot of fun with this project of mine here. So as always, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time.